Welcome to your Farm and Home Show. My name is Joanna Coles, and this morning we're visiting with Dr. Hannah Tiffin. She's with the University of Kentucky as veterinary entomologist there. We're going to continue our conversation about the Asian longhorn tick and why cattle producers need to be concerned about this.
For two specific reasons. So for one, it can transmit a disease called theileriosis, and that can affect cattle, can even kill cattle. And even if it doesn't kill cattle, the cattle that have it can be infected for life. So they can serve as kind of a pool of infection to infect other cattle on the property if that tick is present. The other reason that it's important to know about is because it can reproduce without a male. So it can reproduce really, really quickly and get infestations that are really high, really fast. And that can also affect our cattle. It can even cause death in cattle from these high tick loads. Not necessarily exsanguination like people are thinking, but through more likely toxicosis, or anemia from just having so many ticks on these cows that it's overwhelming the cow's immune system. And it's super important for this tick is on the prevention side of things. So we want to try to prevent this tick from getting onto our farm or on our pastures rather than trying to react to it because of those high infestations. So one of the things that we can do is try to make it less habitable for the ticks. Mm-hmm. So a lot of ticks need water. They dry out really easily, so they're looking for locations where they won't dry out. A lot of those locations are things like tall grasses, tall pastures. If we keep those pastures shorter, we're less likely to have ticks. We're making it less of a nice place for those ticks to exist. We want the cows to have things like acaricides on them or around them. So these could be things like ear tags or pour-ons. A lot of the same types of insecticides or acaricides that you're using for flies can also work for ticks. So you just have to check the label of the bottle and see if that covers ticks as well. But this tick is really important because it can cause such severe problems on the farm and so quickly. So they can get on the farm in a couple different ways. This tick is what we call a generalist species. So it doesn't just feed on cows, it feeds on a whole plethora of things. It can feed on cattle, on horses, on dogs, on people even, and on wildlife. And so that is how it's likely being moved around the state. The primary method that it's being moved around the state is through wildlife, especially potentially white-tailed deer. We have a lot of white-tailed deer in the state. They kind of go where they please. Mm-hmm. So they're likely moving this tick around.
And so for cattle producers, if they're getting their animals up, running them through a working chute, what are some things they need to look for? Because a lot of our cattle are black-hotted and the tick's kind of a bland black creature as well.
It can vary from brown to a darker shade. But what we're looking for on the cattle, anytime you have them up and you're working them, trying to do a tick check. I know, doing a tick check on an entire cow and especially on many cattle is, near impossible, right? But focusing on areas where the ticks are more likely to be present. So these are places where they can get a good meal and stay hidden. So things like the ears, around the udders, around the tail. So places where blood is flowing and they can get an easier meal and also stay hidden away from the cow maybe dislodging the tick. If your cattle look a little bit disheveled, I like to say, if they look like they're having a bad hair day, that might be that they have a bunch of ticks under their fur. So these ticks like to congregate in one area, mm-hmm. and they can congregate in one area, but in a couple areas on the cow. But when they start this kind of congregation, it's going to start pushing the fur up. And so then you might see that your cow, the fur isn't laying flat anymore. So that would be a good indicator to check the cow for ticks as well. One of the other things we can do is create barriers for wildlife getting onto our farm. So the less wildlife we have moving from wild areas onto our farms, onto our pastures, in areas near the cattle, the less likely they're bringing ticks in. So as long as if we can create some barriers like fencing or other types of barriers like some mulching and things like that, that'll help keep the wildlife at bay.
And so if a producer were to find maybe a cluster of ticks and they're concerned about that, who should they contact first?
It depends if the cow also is showing some signs of distress or disease. If that's the case, then talk to your veterinarian. That's got to be the first line of defense always. Mm-hmm. After that, they can certainly reach out to us at University of Kentucky. They can reach out to me personally at University of Kentucky. We have a couple different people in the department that will do some identification of ticks as well. And then if it's a new county record, so if it's a tick that hasn't been detected in one of these counties in Kentucky, we'll be reporting that to the USDA as well.
And cattle producers, it's in our area, and so it's probably something to be able to look out for. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.